Hey, wonderful people. Thanks for joining me again. Last video, we talked about full sinking lines and Type 6 integrated shooting heads. We compared them and contrasted them. This video, I want to build on that, take the next step in understanding, spend one more time talking about the integrated shooting head, because understanding its tactical advantage and then being able to use it on the water is very helpful in being able to catch cutthroat with this line in different situations. So let's start out just drawing the line on the top so we can kind of keep it in mental reference. There is the running line. I'm drawing it green because it's green in the Cortland line, and I see it green all the time, so it makes sense. At the end, we've got the Type 6 shooting head. Running line, shooting head. Sink rate of Type 1, sink rate of Type 6. Okay, there are three different scenarios I want to present, okay? We're going to pretend that this is the tip of a fly rod, okay? We've got, what is that? We've got scenario A, B, and C. Apparently C needed to be really far away. All right, in scenario A is a standard scenario where we've cast the fly line out. I'm doing this with my left hand because I'm left-handed. We cast the fly line out and I say, let it go down. My guy holds on to the line and just pauses and lets the line sink. A, all right, where the line is straight to the fly line, to the fly and under some tension. Okay, then let's look at another scenario. Just keep that in your mind, that's scenario A. Let's look at scenario B, where I've cast the line out, it's landed, and after it's landed, I lift the fly line up and shake the fly rod side to side twice. Boom, boom, like that. And that so that the line lands on the water like this. Okay, something like this, where the line goes out from here and it's straight, but I've put this big serpentine in the line as it's sitting on the water. That's scenario B. Okay? Scenario C. I've cast the line out and it lands on the water, and after it lands, without grabbing the line, but with the rod, I lift straight up and go straight back down really quick, making a pile of line right at the tip of the rod. Okay, and it's right there. That's scenario C. Okay, let's keep those in our mind right here. In water, let's pause for a second. In water, if an object in water has a straight edge or a straight line on it, or if itself is straight, and under tension, lift is created. Okay, so boats have straight lines under the hull so that they create lift, so that they can get up on plane. My fly line, even though it's round, you know, this is the tip of the rod, but it's also a cross section of the fly line. It's round, but if it's under tension, it is in fact creating lift. So I cast the fly line out, I don't let go, and I just let it sink. This is experiencing some lift. Not so much here, but here it is. Each one of these different styles of sinking, each one of these different scenarios is going to lift, some lift, no lift. The lift in the line through tension is going to impact the angle of dive in the head of the fly line. It changes the angle of attack of the dive of the head. Okay, so in scenario A, the head of the fly line is going to sink like this, where the tension, the lateral tension and lift is the dominant force in the sinking process, keeping the line oriented, keeping the head oriented mostly horizontally, with the proximal end higher than the distal end, but not by much because both are experiencing lift. This is going to sink at an average of, let's say, -3, about 3 inches a second on average. And scenario B, there is some lift because there's minimal tension. The tension comes from the compression required here in pulling this straight. This serpentine shape has to be compressed while the line's pulling it out. It pulls the serpentine out as it's going, offering minimal lift, but increasing some drag. Now, this is going to alter the angle of attack of the head in the dive so that it dives like this. It's diving like this. And it's going to dive about 4 inches a second. It's going to go down a little bit faster, but importantly, the angle of attack of the dive is different. And we're going to get into why that's important in just a minute. The third scenario, C, I cast it out there, and then after it lands, I don't grab the line. I just lift the fly rod up and drop it quickly straight down. And it's important I drop it quickly and I drop it straight down. And this creates a neat pile right at the tip of my rod. It also releases virtually any tension in the line so that there's no lift and hardly any drag. The line will maintain a positive dive shape the whole time and sink like this. And it's going to sink at -6 or faster. Now, going back to the top, let's put this away and we can look at all three of these now. We have enough information here, we can talk about them. In each one of these three, you can see the angle of attack here is different. In this scenario, I've got one more thing here. The sinking direction, because the lateral force here, this tension is never released, as the line sinks, it has to sink this direction too because it's under this lateral force. So the sink direction here of the line is here. It sinks down, but also toward the angler, toward where it came from. Scenario B is different. This acts very much like a kite tail, keeping the proximal end higher than the distal end noticeably, so that it has a different angle attack, which actually causes the line to sink down and away from the angler, lengthening and ultimately straightening your presentation. This one, scenario C, I've cast the line out, I lift it up, I chop it straight down. In the very beginning, it'll start to go out, but this has got no tension, so the head wants to sink straight down. Almost all of the force is straight down. Importantly, the same forces that are being applied to the line are also being applied to the fly. So that the fly's orientation here is this. The fly's orientation here is this. The fly's orientation here can be this. Now, on each one of these, typically the weight of the fly is in the front. But in scenario A, it can't really sink that much because the weight is in fact attached to the tippet. And the fact that the tippet's under tension, it's not going to let the weight sink that much. So in scenario A, most of the action of the fly comes from the rear. In scenario B, you get a nice 50% action where there's not very much tension in the head. So the fly can move like this. You get a lot of action. It's probably not the best representation. It's just much more even there. The head of the fly, the weight can move up and down with the release of tension, allowing the back to move, but move in relation to the head. In scenario C, the head moves a lot more than the tail because the head has no action and can dive straight down. First of all, it can actually beat the fly line often. The fly will be deeper than the fly line. This, it'll be slightly deeper. This, it'll be almost the same depth. Okay? So, how is this useful? Let me grab one more marker so we can see here. There are a lot of times when I'm cutty fishing and a standard retrieve is required. I'm out at whatever distance and I'm fishing a shallow flat, or I'm putting the fly right up to the bank. This type of retrieve and sink style is what I want. In scenario A, oftentimes I'm not putting any time in the beginning for it to sink. I cast it out there, it lands, I start stripping. This is really, really good for shoreline casts. Okay, it's also good for over the top of structure. We'll just put structure top. Structure tops. It's also very good for long flats. If I'm fishing a really long flat, or maybe get a little closer, can't read that at all. If I'm fishing, if I'm putting the fly right on the shoreline, if I'm fishing on top of something, there's a piece of wood in just under the surface, or there's a rock that's shallow, I need to get it across the top of something, I want to fish behind some structure, I'm going to use A. If the boat is not, if I'm not fishing deep water, if the boat's in just 3 or 4 feet of water and I'm still 80, 90 feet away, I can't let the fly line sink at all. This type 6 line will be on the bottom. I need to control the angle of sink so it's real shallow, and I want it to stay shallow, so I'm going to use A. I'm going to use scenario B when the tide is higher, all right, on high tides. When I'm fishing outside structure. Okay, so if I am fishing, if it's a high tide and the water is pushed right up to the edge of like high bank, I might want to get the fly down, and then when I get it at the depth I want it to, whoosh, I can introduce tension and it'll hold at that rate. If I want to fish a rock, but I want to fish the outside of it before I want to fish the inside, I'll use this B, the serpentine style B approach, because it'll let the fly slightly lead the fly line, but I can see the fly line and have a really good idea of the depth of the fly. So it gives me good control with an increased sink rate, without having no tension in the line so that you don't know how deep the fly is. This is really good, like I said, for high tides, for fishing on the outside of the structure, or fishing alongside structure. Gosh dang it, alongside. This is the casting sink style of choice when you're fishing general structure. Because the truth is, we'll get into this in other videos, but you should not be casting on top if you can avoid it. You should be casting along the side, and you can get it right in there. The straight line after the serpentine is going to allow you to put the fly precisely where you want it and get really good control. This is the best control. Also, the advantage of having the line, the angle of attack on the head such that you're going down and away from you in the sinking process. Hugely beneficial. Next week we're going to start to talk about where you actually cast the fly, and how, kind of how to fish it from the boat. This is your number one sinking style, your go-to. Type C is especially good for deep water structure and slow retrieve. This style is really important to master because you catch a lot of big fish we catch, you're going to catch this style. This isn't always about deep water as in like deep, but it's deep water structure where the structure doesn't approach the top. Like they could be rocks as big as a garbage can or smaller or slightly bigger, whatever, but they're 5-6 feet underwater. They're on the bottom. There's like a rock garden. What this style will allow you to do, let's say that there are a whole bunch of rocks here. These are like the tops of rocks, okay? And in a rock garden. Well, I just use the same one. What this style of sinking will allow you to do is you're cast it out there, lift it up, chop it down. You're keeping an eye on your pile of line and you're watching its uncoil rate. And sometimes all of a sudden it'll just start to uncoil real fast. And that's like, oh dang, that's a fish. You strip it in, set the hook, that's a fish, you caught one. Though sometimes, or oftentimes, especially like the first couple casts of the day, you cast it out there, you watch, you time how long it takes it to get down so that you have a good idea. You pull it off the bottom. Now your next cast, you do it and you wait 2 seconds or so less so that your fly is right down here, right? Here's your fly, beep, 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 you got the hook. It's down here. Every time you retrieve it, you're gonna pick the fly up vertically, pretty vertical in the first few, little bit of it. And it's gonna come up like this, retrieve shape, it's like that. Now, if I retrieve it a little bit, and then chop a little tiny bit of line back to it, boom, I can drop it right back in here into the structure. And then I can retrieve it, beep, 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 and then drop it, beep, 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 and then strip it, and then drop it, strip it, drop it. So when I want to fish deep water structure and I want to keep the fly down, I have to begin with no tension and I have to keep reintroducing slack into the line every single retrieve if I want to keep it down. If I don't put slack back into it on this type of retrieve, it's going to pick up and going to turn into this really quick. So when you're casting like this, you have to maintain and keep that tension back in between strips. Not every time. It can be strip, chop a little back. Strip, chop a little back. Let it come tight. Strip, and your fly's going to pick up and drop straight back down. Pick up and drop straight back down. Excellent presentation style for fishing deep water structure, for fishing drop-offs, for fishing on the back side of something that's really abrupt. Spending time on the water and being able to identify when you cast and when you sink with different styles is critical for year-round success. Hope this has been helpful. Please, if it has been helpful, subscribe to the channel. It's helpful for me. And leave comments so that I can improve my videos and answer any questions that you guys might have. Again, my next video, we're going to go over where do you actually cast the line? I know that sounds like an obvious thing, but believe it or not, it matters. So check me out next video, and I'll see you.